Hi, I'm John with Orange ModWorks, and today we're going to go over some Kit 1 troubleshooting and installation tips for the Raider, the Alpha Trooper, and the Long Strike. Alright, first up is the Long Strike. This one here has the stock pieces removed already, and the air restrictor removed. Right now the bolt sled is properly seated forward with all of the locks engaged and nothing out of place. To install the kit, start with the trigger catch, hold your bolt sled down, and slide it into place. There should be no resistance in its up and down motion right here. Save the trigger catch spring for last because it's going to make your job a lot less complicated. Next, the spring. This is the aftermarket spring. With the other blasters, I would recommend installing with the stock spring just to give it a function check before you screw everything down. But it's much more difficult to do that with the Long Strike. So we're going to start with the aftermarket 6 kilogram spring. And then the spring holder. The small hook is on the bottom and the large hook on top. So hold everything in place and push it in forward just like that and drop it down. And you shouldn't have to force anything when you're installing these kits or doing any sort of assembly with your blasters. Next, take the 2 silver screws and screw the spring holder into place. Make sure all of your locks are in place and that the bolt sled is seated all the way down and not sticking out. At this time you can go ahead and seat the trigger catch spring, but you don't have to install it all the way at this point. On some Long Strikes, when you put the spring in, the catch wants to pop out and lift, causing the spring to shoot out or get in the way of closing the shell. So we'll leave that up for now. And take your shell and lay it on top. And it should seat down, and you can see the spring still sticking out. So just open it up a little bit, push it in, and down. And then as you take your finger out, close the shell. There you go. To test, I like to use rubber bands on the Long Strike and the Raider because they do a good job of holding the shell together. But you're going to still want to apply pressure with your hands when you're testing the prime, just to be safe. But this will ensure that nothing gets knocked out of place, and you don't have to go back and figure out which locks have been engaged and which ones haven't. Now when you're priming, you're going to want to use 2 hands and apply even rearward pressure. If you try to use one, the bolt sled and the shell are going to pull to one side, causing the plunger to touch the spring holder, and if you try to force a prime, it can cause your bolt sled or the breech area to shatter. So just give it a test, holding your shell together and applying even rearward pressure. There you go. It should prime just like that. Never force a prime. If it feels like there's too much resistance, take it apart and look inside. It's usually one of the locks is not in place. And we don't want to dry fire this with the 6 kilogram spring, so I'm going to get a dart and stick it in there. Okay. You can take your dart and insert it into the breech, and then bring it forward so it engages the dart tooth. And give it a test fire. There we go. So it should be very smooth. Nothing should be rubbing, nothing should be catching on anything. And there's your first lock, the half prime. I like to leave the locks in place with the 6 kilogram spring, because if you slip, you don't want this handle shooting forward and pinching your hands or something. It's funny because when you up the spring tension, the small locks that were originally intended for little kids actually come in handy. Alright. And I've opened up these yellow handles and cut the clips on the inside so they can be removed. That way you can disassemble your long strike without having to resort to a hammer to pry open those handles every time. Alright, there you go.